Martin Luther King Jr. is the most iconic figure in the civil rights movement in the minds of many. But without Martin Luther King Sr., the man who became that influential leader in the 1960s would never have existed. And I don't just mean that his father helped to biologically create Martin Luther King Jr. I mean that his father played a huge role in shaping his image, to the point that he made a lot of decisions for Martin Luther King Jr. that most grown men make for themselves. King Sr. groomed his son for leadership the way that royal monarchs of the Renaissance era groomed their children to reign over kingdoms. Often, one of the many facets of that kind of preparation for adulthood is solidifying an arranged marriage. I touched on that in a previous video that I published about Martin Luther King Jr. Martin's father understood the nuances of the integrated North, and because of that, he disapproved of King's relationship with his white girlfriend. But he objected for other reasons too. One, King was being groomed to pastor a church and lead the budding civil rights movement. His father knew that a Martin Luther King Jr. who had a white wife would not be received well by his church or the press or the movement, which would have seen King's interracial relationship as hypocritical at best. The other reasons that King's father would disapprove of Betty was that she, even though white, was below Martin's station or social status. Martin was being groomed for something great, and a cafeteria worker simply had no place in the picture. Martin Luther King Sr. had a lot to say about his son's life and potential wife. The way he saw it, his son was destined for greatness, and those plans did not include a white woman cafeteria worker, or even Coretta Scott in the beginning. King Sr.'s first choice of a wife for his son was Mattiwilda Dobbs, an opera singer from a prominent black family in Atlanta. But that's a story for another day. And because she deserves to be more than a footnote in Martin Luther King Jr.'s life, today is that day to talk about her life, the life of Mattiwilda Dobbs. But first, if you like these videos about the most scandalous stories from yesteryear that make Ty's Hot Mess History a time capsule for the culture, subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can know every time that I upload one of these videos or every time that I live stream. And comment "I subscribe" in the comment section so that I can say hello to you. Now, on to why you are here. Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't the only one who had a dream. His father had a dream for him, and a big part of MLK Sr.'s dream hinged on finding the right wife for Martin Luther King Jr. Daddy King thought that Mattiwilda Dobbs was the perfect choice. We'll briefly explore what made her so appealing to King Sr., and then delve into her own life and accomplishments, because her legacy is so much more than a mere footnote as the one who almost was in the life of Martin Luther King Jr. To bottom line this, Martin Luther King Jr.'s father liked Mattiwilda Dobbs because of who her father was. Here are a few key points in John Dobbs' resume, so to speak. He attended Atlanta Baptist College, which is now known as Morehouse College. In 1903, he passed the U.S. postal exam to become a postal clerk and assumed what was a highly respected position for black men at the turn of the century. He also proposed organizing the Atlanta Civic and Political League, and he was active in the formation of the Atlanta Negro Voters League. This organization gathered 18,000 votes in 51 days, which was enough to convince the mayor at the time, Mayor Hartsfield, to hire 8 black policemen. Now, those black police officers were not allowed to arrest any white citizens, nor could they drive squad cars or even step foot in police headquarters. But hey, it was something, I guess. Nevertheless, in general, John Dobbs was very active as a speaker for the equality of blacks in America, and he was a friend of Martin Luther King Sr. He had connections and influence, and to top it all off, he had 6 pretty daughters, one of whom was the perfect age for MLK Jr., Mattiwilda. Named for her grandmother, Mattiwilda Sykes, Mattiwilda Dobbs was born in Atlanta on July 11, 1925, the 5th of 6 daughters of John Wesley Dobbs and the former Irene Ophelia Thompson. She came from a distinguished family. In addition to her father's political influence, connections, and education, he insisted on a college education along with 7 years' study of the piano for each of his daughters, and he made it so. As a girl, Mattiwilda also sang in her church, but she was so shy that she never envisioned a performing career for herself. She began voice lessons as an undergraduate at Spelman College in Atlanta. At first, she studied home economics and considered becoming a fashion designer. She later changed her mind and majored in Spanish and music. She earned her bachelor's degrees, graduating first in her class. After that, she did what her father told her to do, which was move north so that she could get advanced vocal training. She went on with her music studies, but she thought that a career in music was a long shot. So, playing it safe, she earned her master's degree in Spanish from Columbia University Teachers College, a step to take just in case she ever needed to get a quote-unquote real job. Well, she would never need to do that. In 1948, Mattiwilda won 2 scholarships, one from the Marian Anderson Scholarship Fund and the other from the John Hay Whitney Foundation. With those financial awards, she moved to Paris and continued to study music under Pierre Bernac. From that point on, her life can start to read like a list of accomplishments, one after the other. And I will actually list some of her achievements later in the story. But for the sake of pulling in Martin Luther King Jr. for the last time in her story, I'll tell you one more of her awards now. In 1951, Mattiwilda Dobbs won first prize in the Geneva International Music Convention. This win gave Mattiwilda her first taste of international attention. 1951 was also the year that MLK Jr. broke up with his first girlfriend, Betty Mowitz, the white cafeteria worker from his seminary school. So, lunch lady or internationally known opera singer whose career is on the rise. No wonder why MLK Sr. thought that Mattiwilda was the one for his son. But she had her own ideas for whose marriage proposal she would accept, and neither Michael King, who she knew him as, nor Martin Luther King were on her list. We know that Michael, better known as Martin Luther King Jr., married Coretta Scott in 1953. Well, Mattiwilda Dobbs got married in 1953 also, to her first husband, Luis Rodriguez Garcia de la Piedra, a journalist from Spain. He died from a liver ailment the very next year, only 14 months after the couple was wed. Mattiwilda had to soldier on only days after his death to honor a prior commitment that she had made to sing at Covent Garden for the newly installed monarch, Queen Elizabeth II. 4 years later, she married again, this time to Bengt Jansson, a Swedish journalist. I guess she had a thing for journalists. The pair remained married for 40 years until death parted them when he died in 1997. Mattiwilda Dobbs had a fascinating career and traveled to more places in the 1950s than most people do today in 2023. And she credited her father for pushing her. In 1969, she told Look magazine, quote, "I never would have been a singer if it were not for my father. I was too shy," end quote. Throughout her illustrious career, Miss Dobbs refused to sing in segregated concert halls. She didn't even perform in Atlanta, her own hometown, until 1962, when she was able to sing before an audience that was finally integrated at the Municipal Auditorium there. After retiring from the concert stage in 1974, Miss Dobbs taught voice at the University of Texas. She later taught at Spelman and Howard University. Also in 1974, Mattiwilda performed at the inauguration of Atlanta's first black mayor, Maynard Jackson. Maynard Jackson was the grandson of Mattiwilda Dobbs' father and her own nephew, so perhaps all of her father's hard work paid off for his descendants. He died in 1961 before he got to see all of it come to pass. But still, this had to in some way feel like some kind of amazing full circle moment for the Dobbs family. Yes, her nephew was the first black mayor of Atlanta, but Ms. Dobbs was the first black to accomplish many achievements in her own field. Here is a list of some of her career highlights. She made her professional debut in 1952 as the Nightingale in Stravinsky's The Nightingale at the Holland Festival. She was the first black principal singer at La Scala in Milan, Italy. In 1954, Dobbs finally debuted in the United States with the Little Orchestra Society in New York. Then in 1955, she became the first black to play a major role in the San Francisco Opera. It is well known that Marian Anderson was the first black person to perform at the New York Metropolitan Opera. Dobbs was the third, but she was the first black to be offered a long-term contract at the Met. She accepted the offer and appeared with the Met's company 29 times for roughly a decade. As for her Metropolitan Opera debut, Dobbs portrayed Gilda in Rigoletto on November 9, 1956. In a review of her performance, Carl van Vechten, a white patron of the Harlem Renaissance and author, wrote that Dobbs was, quote, glorious, a warm and brilliant coloratura, and the best Gilda in my experience, end quote. He also took this photograph of her. Fun fact, we know that Marian Anderson was the first black to perform at the Met, and that Mattiwilda Dobbs was the third. But do you know who the second was? Robert McFerrin, the father of Bobby McFerrin, as in Don't Worry, Be Happy Bobby McFerrin. Miss Dobbs sang with the Royal Swedish Opera, the Hamburg State Opera, and the Israel Philharmonic. In 1959, she was one of 4 Americans sent by President Dwight D. Eisenhower to establish a cultural exchange program with the Soviet Union. Dobbs was the only black and the only woman. Her recordings include, but are not limited to, Mozart's The Abduction from the Seraglio and Offenbach's Tales of Hoffmann. A woman with all of those achievements, especially in that era, it seems would be better known, and only proves that timing is everything. For Mattiwilda's prime was sandwiched between the rise of 2 of the most well-known black opera singers, Marian Anderson and Leontine Price. And those 2 greats just seemed to eclipse Mattiwilda Dobbs. And the fact that she did not make a lot of recordings of her music didn't help either. But regardless of the greats who came before her or after her, Mattiwilda Dobbs' career cannot be denied. She was a trailblazer in her own right. Carl van Vechten is referenced in this story, the white patron of the Harlem Renaissance. As a patron of the Harlem Renaissance, he became close friends with Alelia Walker, the daughter of Madam C.J. Walker. He is also referenced a couple of times in my video about her, and how quickly she spent the money her mother left her from her massive fortune. You can see that video here. I will also leave a link to it in the description box. My sources for this story are AfricanAmericanRegistry.org, New York Times Archives 2015, Spelman.edu, and multiple Jet Magazine archives. By the way, in this footage that you've seen of her on this video, Mattiwilda Dobbs is 62. And you can see this entire recital on the Piano Love 45 channel here on YouTube. Are you a content creator, influencer, or blogger who feels like your platform could use an extra boost? Are you thinking about becoming a content creator but you don't know where to start and you want to be sure that you dot all of your I's and cross all of your T's? If so, Lailah Lynn can likely show you exactly what you need to get on your way. Her fun new class is called The Business of Blogging with Lailah Lynn, and in it, she is sharing the fundamental principles of blogging in 2022. Because let's face it, social media is a moving target, and what worked well 5 years ago is likely not what works well today. And with Lailah Lynn, you're getting the information from someone who is successful at putting the principles to practice on her own social media platforms, and she literally has the credentials to back it all up, as she holds degrees in social media marketing. Lailah Lynn is a multiple six-figure earner whose first social media marketing course helped this channel go from earning $30 a month to earning 5 figures a month. I'm ready to dig in my heels and learn even more so that I can earn even more. Are you with me? If so, hit my link at the top of the description box and join her class to access this amazing, affordable advice from a woman who knows her business, the business of blogging. If you have a business, product, service, YouTube channel, or social media account that you would like to promote on my channel, email me at tiwan@tisaidwhattisaid.com to get rates for advertising on my community tab, my live streams, and/or my edited videos, just like this one. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Ti Said What Ti Said channel. Please leave a thumbs up and comment so that we can get a discussion going. And share this video on all of your social media, especially your Facebook. That really helps me out a lot. And subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can know when my next video is ready for you. And if you don't like what I'm saying but you love it, feel free to hit that thanks button just below your video screen there and send me some
donations.
Yeah, baby. See you on the next video.